I'm going to show you how to deal with what we would call raw material. This is a dwarf Picea. It's not the ordinary dwarf Canadian spruce Picea albertiana conica, but it's a sport of that variant. This tree, I've had a look at it, has a very thick trunk, so I would say it is at least 30 to 40 years old. It has been grown as a collected specialist conifer, but it's not really a bonsai. As you can see, it's quite a big tree. When you get material like this, the first thing we do is to take it out of the pot to explore the roots. I think it was recently transferred to that big pot, but it hasn't had a chance to settle in, but the roots are pretty good. And what I'm trying to do now is to find the root base. I think it's best if I put it on a turntable. Look at the tree from every side, and we will tease away at the roots to see where the trunk lies. And the trunk, believe it or not, is pretty thick. The trunk, if I measure it, is at least 6 inches in diameter. 6 inches, so it's a pretty old tree. That is the trunk there, as thick as that. So we'll scrape away and see if we can utilize the trunk. It has been planted probably a bit too deep when it was grown as a nursery tree, but for bonsai we want to show the trunk. When we make bonsais, the trunk is very important, because unless you can show the trunk, it won't look like a tree. Remember that it's only trees that have trunks, and if it looks like a bush, then it will always be a bush. It won't look like a bonsai. After all, when we're trying to make bonsai, we're trying to make a miniature tree. So the tree image should be quite obvious. You can now see the trunk. It's that thick. I'm removing some of these very fine roots which are popping up from quite high up the trunk, but I don't want the roots to come out from there. I want the main roots to come from the base of the tree. If we look carefully into the tree, there is a single trunk going up there, and some of the branches are very low, but we will have to use as many branches as possible. So it's just a question of clearing all this debris and seeing what we have in the tree itself. I'm still trying to find the front of the tree. The front of the tree is determined in this instance by the root spread and the way the trunk appears. If I look at it this side, this looks quite nice. This is not very nice, it's too narrow here. And this is the back of the side that I looked at earlier, and this doesn't look very nice either, although I must remove some of these high roots. I still come back to this side as a possible front. So if we are using this as the front, we don't want too many branches growing from the front of the tree. So I will begin by removing some of these branches, just to show the trunk. I know that most people who are fairly new to bonsai have great difficulty in deciding what to remove and what to not to remove. But I think this comes with experience. The more you work on trees, the more you will get the confidence to make the decisions. So that's the base of the tree. That's a possible first branch. More possibilities here. Because the tree is so dense, there's a lot of dead branches inside the tree. So we can remove some of the debris from there. Branches which are too low, we can remove. These piceas do grow from cuttings quite easily, so because this is quite a rare species or variety of picea, I may keep some of these for cuttings. And the best way to make cuttings is to make heel cuttings like that, about that length. Clean the heel up, dip it in hormone rooting powder, half the depth, and you'll get a new tree. So I'm going to save quite a few of these for propagation because it's rare. I'm trying to create spaces between the branches to give a tiered effect. Some of these very thick low branches I'm going to remove, and I will probably use it for making little bits of gin or driftwood. So rather than cut it off, I'm going to tear it. You can see the structure of the tree now. I'm trying to create more pads or levels, different layers. just removing some of these very low branches. So I've already removed about, I would say, almost half the tree. Look at the stuff I've removed. I still think this is the front. That branch at the back is very thick. Probably won't. Now before I do anything more, I want to put it in a temporary pot. Mind you, we're doing this right in the middle of summer. It's about July time. I haven't cut any of the roots, I've just taken it out of the pot. So I need to put it in quite a generous size pot without having to cut the roots. And then in the early spring of next year, I may put it in the final pot, or for that matter, I might leave it for another 18 months and pot it the year after next in its final pot. So this pot for the final tree would be too big, but it's too small for the tree to be healthy and comfortable. while it is growing, so I have to find a slightly larger pot. Even this pot is a bit too shallow. I think I'll have to use a pot about this size just to keep it as a temporary pot. There it is in the temporary pot, and we will do a little more wiring later on. So all this work has not even taken half an hour. So if you know what you're doing, you can create the basics of the bonsai very, very quickly, and then the refinement you can take as long as you wish. But there you are. It looks a pretty reasonable tree. So as you can see, this Picea, although it started off looking very complicated, the sequence that I worked through was like this. From that great big blob of a tree, I removed it out of the pot, took it down to the main root level so that we could see how the roots spread into the soil. The disposition of the roots also gives an indication as to which is the best side for the front of the tree. Once you find the front of the tree, you remove branches so that you have branches coming up about 2 or 3 inches above that trunk, and then we proceed to remove branches so that you create layers between branches. Fortunately, this tree is not very tall. It's only about, I would say, 45 centimeters tall, and it's got a reasonable taper, and we didn't have to chop the top to create the tree. So this was a fairly simple one, and I've only wired the lower branches. I will consider wiring the upper branches as time goes on, but already with, as you could have seen, just about half an hour's work, we produced a very reasonable bonsai.